Digging deeper into social learning theory, constructivism, constructionism, activity theory, reflection, and fluidity. Constructivism, yes, we've already discussed it, but it is so important, particularly for blended and fully online learning, that it's worth revisiting. Language is our greatest learning tool. The V, constructivism, V is for verbal. V is for Vygotsky, V is for verbal. It's the negotiation, whether it's internal, the dialogue in our own head, or it's external, where we're negotiating, meaning trying to make sense of something we're observing, experiencing, arguing, debating, again, either external or internal. It's the combination of new knowledge, skills, and ideas. And because of the negotiation that goes on, the dialogue in our heads, the experiences, and us trying to make sense of them, we combine that with existing knowledge. It's not a linear build up, such as we would tend to think in, let's say, a traditional instructionalist or behaviorist environment. You're not just dumping ideas on top of pre-existing ideas. You are extending scaffolds. You're building internally through the negotiation that goes on internally and externally. Conversations take place. This is why you don't just throw out all the answers. You want the learner to engage in their own process of making sense, facilitation, guiding, creating opportunities, asking great questions that are the opening of a door to even deeper questions. Constructivism, verbal. Now, constructionism is often confused for constructivism. Remember, V verbal, there's no V here. Constructionism is based upon exactly what it looks like it would be based upon. It's the idea that learning occurs best when the learner is engaged in creating something. Now, these tend to be tangible things. The father of constructionism, even though it was inspired by Vygotsky and constructivism, Seymour Papert out of MIT, is considered the spokesperson, the father of this philosophy of learning. What he's written here, please take a moment and read it to yourself. It's absolutely a brilliant way of boiling down this, because it seems like it's only play-based. Well, it's not only play-based, although there does tend to be a great deal of activity, play, doing, building, deconstructing, reconstructing, actual things. Papert invented Lego Logo, which is an outstanding program. Papert is one of our earliest advocates for teaching children how to code on the computer. The crucial thing to remember with constructionism is there needs to be something tangible, an action that is physical. You are doing something. Now, you may laugh at me and say, wait a minute, you just said he was talking about coding. But if we're talking about coding for children in particular, to learn how if I do this, then that happens, but if I do this, that will happen, that's an actual physical activity. They are writing code, they're modeling, they're drafting, they're testing, they're experimenting. So even though simulations may feel to us as adults as if they're not authentic construction, there can be authentic construction. It's how we have the learners use the tools. Now let's move on to activity theory. And yes, we've already touched upon it, but because it is so complex, it's worth revisiting again. And it does offer us a powerful way of focusing in on the whole of the environment for our learners, because activity theory is particularly focused on learning being contextual and socially situated. You remember previously we had that graphic that tried to show how everything fits in together. Well, when we say socially situated, it's not just the immediate vicinity of the learner. It's the entire environment in which that student is learning and the environment in which the learning itself lives. Shakespeare, to someone who lives in an environment where Shakespeare is not performed on a regular basis, will have a very difficult time even being able to focus in on it, because unless there is a way to bring some semblance of relevancy and value learning it is utterly irrelevant to the learner. Artifacts and culture extend or impede the growth of the individual. Artifacts. Well, now we sound like we're talking about a community of practice. Well, there are some correlations. But remember that with activity theory, we're looking at the whole of the individual within the whole of society, within the whole of the realm of the discipline that we're studying or trying to teach. The whole of the learning experience is relevant. And again, context, tools, history of the tools, experiences with those tools, with the concepts pre and post learning, they all correlate into the power of using activity theory as you design, as you guide, as you facilitate. There are strong connections to Vygotsky. Knowledge is constructed. Except for Vygotsky, it was more about the internal conversation, whereas in activity theory, that conversation is within the whole of the environment, in the society, in the context and the situation in which he or she has lived, is living, will live in the future. Tension and transformation, these are the things about activity theory that I always take away. Tension and transformation are an integral part of the experience of creating meaning. Constructivism doesn't really go there. Constructionism doesn't really go there. But activity theory does. And by remembering that part of the learning process will be that tension. What am I doing? This doesn't feel right. I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm doing. And then the transformation of thought, ability, and that transformation is also transformation of how the individual sees his or herself. Does she see herself as a real mathematician, as a real scientist? You may be wondering why reflection is in here. It seems so obvious. It's something we do and we know as teachers is important. But I wanted to pull in Kolb's experiential learning cycle for a very specific reason. This model, particularly for those of us who are teaching fully online, but for blended, it's very important as well. This is crucial for us to remember as we're facilitating different learning experiences, because reflection gets lost in the process. We have to build in reflection components and time. We have to give it value because it's so important. It correlates strongly with activity theory, strongly with both constructionism and constructivism. It is an internal way of constructing understanding through doing something external. It's not about pouring knowledge in. It's about creating the opportunity and facilitating it for the learner to do, hear, rethink, think, discuss, write, talk, negotiate, explore, explain, build, create, analyze. Oh, wait a minute. Somebody pulled in blooms. Let's move on. Fluidity. Something else that may sound really out of place here, but go with me. Fluidity. This is one of the crucial components in self-initiated learning. And particularly for our students who are fully online and those in blended environments where they have more freedom of choice, this is crucial. It relates directly to problem solving. If you don't have fluidity, if you have to stop and think through the mechanics of every little decision or movement, if you are so uncomfortable with the concept of going, of trying, of letting it happen and seeing where it goes, you find yourself in a situation where innovation and creativity are very rare. It's incredibly motivational to want to be fluid at something, whether it's math, whether it's science. Doesn't mean you memorize everything. But as we've discussed, think about the difference with the kids today who have grown up having knowledge at their fingertips. They didn't have to wait to go to the library. They didn't have to wait to go to school to get their questions answered. They can go onto YouHooligans. They can go into Google. They can grab mom's iPhone and find the answer to their question. Minecraft. Minecraft crashes on these kids and they jump on YouTube and find somebody who can tell them how to fix it. Incredibly motivational. Plus, having a goal of fluidity in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's you as the teacher or what you share with your students, that this is something they should be working toward. Not necessarily automaticity, but fluidity. It allows a learner to focus on the intended experience that you've designed rather than the tools that should be affording that experience. Practical applications? Are there any practical applications? There are. You don't sit down and say, today we're going to work on constructivism. But as you look at your individual learners, remember we're moving into a world where being able to serve the individual is going to be, and is already getting, not just easier because of all the different tools that we have as 21st century instructors, but because of the needs of our 21st century learners. If we go back to the reading and we talk about the desire to do differentiated instruction, the practical applications are our ability to refine, to construct, to augment, to guide the learning. If it's blended, yes, we have the ability to sit down with our learners and work with them one-on-one. Nothing works for everyone. We know this, yet we've been forced into a model for the past 50 years where because of time and pressure, okay, we differentiated as much as we possibly could, but still the reality has been what it's been. But now, with fully online and with blended, and even on ground where you have some flexibility and choice, whether it's using ClassDojo or adding in Brain Pops as homework or as a center, pulling in the tenets of constructivism, constructionism, activity theory, remembering that we always must find opportunities and time for reflection, that fluidity should be something we are transparent about. We model it, we openly discuss it. There is a very specific reason why virtual meetings are so important in fully online. To be able to talk to the learner and see that he or she is able to converse, ask you questions, answer your questions, make jokes, play with it, talk, explain, question, and have some semblance of fluidity with the intended understandings that we're hoping he or she is constructing. Get it? That's the crux of all this. We have to be able to facilitate our learners having fluidity with their own metacognitive processes so that they do own it and can continue to scaffold up and out and under and inside and anything you can think of. So there are practical applications. No, it's not cake in a box. Just add water, mix and bake. Doesn't work that way. But by keeping these concepts in the back of our minds and pulling them out when we're looking at the learning. Maybe you're using a program with your students where you're getting a dashboard full of information, maybe the Khan Academy. And you're seeing holes, you're seeing places where your students are having an issue, are having a hole in their understanding. They're having trouble constructing real, meaningful knowledge in that area. Go back to our theories. Recognize their value as our support systems. They give us guidance. They act as a North Star when the skies above us are dark and cloudy and we just don't know where to go next. Thank you.